hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Yacc, yet another Crowcast where I pick a game, I play it for a week, and then I talk about it. This week's game is Death's Door for the PlayStation 4. It was released in 2021. It's an action-adventure Souls-like, developed by Acid Nerve and published by Devolver Digital. And also there will be spoilers up ahead, just but first a little backstory. So a couple of weeks ago I went to a couple of Discords that I usually pin message in and whatnot, and I asked them what game would they like me to play. And HelixEternal reached out from the Retrovania's Discord, and he suggested I will play Death's Door because my podcast name is Yet Another Crowcast, and this game is about crows, basically. So when you start out the game, you get a bunch of company logos, and then you get the main title in an office setting. And from here you can choose start a new game or options, and then you can pick a save file, and then you're off. So the game starts with a bus arriving at the Reaping Commission headquarters, and a little crow steps out. So I explore the station a bit. It's basically floating in a void. Everything is in black and white, except for the main character's sword, which is red. Think lightsaber from the Star Wars universe. And this sword is called the Reaper Sword. So you arrive at the HQ and you get a door, and the main purpose of this game is for you to reap souls. So the first door leads into the tutorial section, the garden, and here you will learn how to play the game. So you have buttons and keys and stuff that you pick up. It's basically like Zelda in that regard. So you can take 4 hits before you die, and then you have to start all over again at the beginning of the stage. And the first boss is a giant flower, so you avoid its attacks and then you take it out. You also have the bow that you can use with the L2 and the circle button. You have 4 arrows, and these arrows can be restocked by hitting destructible objects and enemies. Once you defeat a boss, a rift will open up from behind, and a huge crow will step out and he will knock you out and take your prize. So I followed the crow through the rift that he created, and I ended up in a graveyard, and here I found a seed, and these seeds can be planted in pots and act as health. So once the plant bloom, you can actually take it and eat it. I guess he's eating it, and then his health will be fully maxed out again. There's also a funny thing, there are these signs that point to different locations of the game. So I was going to the summit, and I cut the sign in half, and I was like, okay, maybe I can read it. So the sign is actually cut off in half, the text, when you try to read it, which was kind of funny. So I beat up a couple of enemies, unlocked some gates, made some progress, and I got some souls, which are used as currency in this game. You can actually go back to the HQ and buy things that will upgrade your strength and haste and stuff like that, so you're faster, stronger, and more swift with certain types of weapons and stuff like that. Classic Hollow Knight-ish, Souls-like behavior. So after exploring some more, I found this huge gravedigger character, and he won't move until you hit him. So I guess he works as a punching bag for the tutorial to make your stronger attacks. He eventually says well, you're puny and you can pass, which is kind of funny because you don't do a lot of damage at the beginning of the game at least. But then again, he's a very nice guy, so he doesn't hit your back or anything. So I did some more exploring, and I find some, they're basically like shrines. You have yellow shrines and you have red shrines. So you get these crystals, and once you get 4 of them, your HP will increase, or the number of arrows you have, I believe, will also increase. And I beat some more enemies, and I realized I could return to HQ at any time, or through these doors. And as I said before, here you can upgrade your dexterity, your strength, haste, dexterity magic, stuff like that. So they basically cost souls, and the more you spend, the stronger you get. So this game is a bit like Dark Souls, but it's not that brutal. So you don't lose the souls when you die. You don't have a stamina bar. But the cool thing is most of the areas connect via ladders and open up gates and stuff like that. And finally I confronted the Guardian of the Door, which is basically a boss tower. So it's literally a building that you're fighting. So it has rockets, so you can fly around. It targets you with missiles and lasers. I managed to beat him, and then I was on my way to the summit itself. And then I found some incense, which is basically a shiny thing. So you collect 24 of these shiny things because some birds like to collect shiny things. That's a fact. Also confronted a big bird at the top, which is called the gray crow, the one that hit you in the head after the first boss encounter. So he is looking for a big souls or some major souls to open up Death's Door. So you're on a new quest now to find 3 big souls. So these souls are located in the north, east, and west. So the north one is the Old Witch, which is basically tied to a huge mansion with pots and ceramics. And the east one is the home of the self-proclaimed god, and it's a flooded cathedral. And then you have the west, which is a beast of untold years. He's actually in another previous game that the company made called Titan Soul. and I'll talk more about that in the Easter egg, secrets, and glitches section. So the first boss I wanted to do was the Old Witch, but before I did that I went back to HQ and I found a new weapon called the Umbrella, and it's basically like the Reaper's Sword, but it does less damage, and it also has a cute animation of just the crow using it as an umbrella when he's at a standstill. So while at the Witch Mansion I ran into a character called Pothead, and he's basically a construct with a pot for a head, and he's kind of funny. There's a bit of humor there, at least I think so. So you help him light some lanterns with the help of your arrows, and you have these bonfire things. We shoot the arrow through it and light other bonfires, and that in turn open up doors and passageways. And later you sit with him on a bench and then you talk a bit. He was an interesting character for sure. And when I eventually got into the manor itself, I freed some crow souls. I think there are 4 of them, and then you have to fight the witch herself. And the bosses of these games are super hard. You have to learn their patterns and stuff. It's a bit like Dark Souls, but less punishing. So yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about it, but the witch is basically a creepy porcelain doll. Think the big witch from Howl's Moving Castle, which is actually a reference that the game developer used. You basically go and save these crow souls that I think they're basically incarnations of other reapers that got lost in this place and died. So you need to gather up 4 of these crow souls in order to open up a gateway to a boss rush, or like a mob rush situation in a mimic chest. But the more things you destroy and the more crow souls she gets to see you destroyed, the more angry she gets, and she's trying to conceal it, but she's not very good at it. At the end, when you confront her in the basement, you're told you're not supposed to go there. She actually tells you like, "You little shit." It's one of those moments that really cracked me up. And before this battle, there was also a funny glitch that I exploited. There's basically this teapot guy that's blocking a ladder up to a higher place. We need to find one of the crow souls, and he basically says like, "Let's dance," and he will demolish you if you stand in the way when he spins. So there's a stairway, like a landing, I guess you call it. You can actually go up the landing and stand there and wait for him to stop spinning and hit him. It's a bit of a cheesy strategy, but that's the way I beat it. So this week I had a lot of things on my plate. I'm doing my movie reviews as usual, the podcast, and I'm also making a new album. It should be out when I publish this episode. Fingers crossed, I guess. And I also have a lot of things coming up this weekend. So I couldn't play the game as much as I wanted to. It's a really great game though. And it's not that punishing as other Souls-like. If you die, you don't lose the souls or anything. You can always... There's plenty of checkpoints and stuff. And I like the concept. The Unity engine which is used is perfect for these kind of games. It has that kind of feel to it. And that I like. It's a little bit like cel-shaded graphics, if that makes sense. And there's a lot of... I just like the style of the engine, I guess. So gameplay. You're a little crow reaper working for an organization dragged into something bigger. That's the basic story that I gather, at least. So control. The square button is weapon, whatever weapon you have at your disposal. The X button is roll. The triangle is talk/climb. The left stick is movement. The right stick is camera. R2 is the power attack. And L2 and the circle button is your bow and arrow. And the start button pauses. Graphics. So this game was made in a Unity engine, and I like the environment, the coloring, and the art style. This game just fits the Unity engine perfectly. Sound and music. David Fenn made a soundtrack for this game, and the strange thing about it was that the music was always there in the background, but I can't remember a single track from it. And that's kind of weird, actually. Easter eggs, secrets, and glitches. I watched the developers react to a speedrun of their own game, and the game was beat within 55 minutes, so the runner managed to skip some unskippable cutscenes and go through some geometry and push through gates and clipping and stuff like that. And it was kind of interesting seeing them reacting to the way that their game was broken, and they thought they had it all figured out, and the reactions were kind of priceless, actually. I also watched a documentary from NoClip about this game, so they talked to the devs, and they admit that they were inspired by the Zelda games, Hollow Knight and Dark Souls and stuff like that. There was also a cool thing that the developers said about Titan Soul. So basically, these two universes, Titan Soul and Death's Door, they are connected through bosses, characters, and environments even. So they're slightly hinted at, but if you played both games, you kind of realized, oh, that boss is actually the plant boss from the beginning of the game, and that Yeti-looking monster, ice monster, is actually the same. and the crow character is basically looking for the character in the first game. They're not saying it, but there's like hinted at it. So you know, what do you call it, like read between the lines, and I like it when developers does stuff like that. So in conclusion, I wrote, yes, play it if you like Hollow Knight, Souls games, and the classic Zelda series. So this game looks good, it has interesting character choices in their design, and the game is a bit challenging, but you know, it doesn't have the penalty of normal Souls game, as far as I know about at least, and it had a good price on the PSN store. So the only problem I had was not with the game but with myself. So as I said before, this week I was stretched for time, I had a lot of things on my plate. And that's the thing with being an adult. You don't always have time to play games, even though if you want to. So maybe I'll finish this on my spare time, when I got time, that is, maybe. Because it's a really awesome looking game, it is interesting, not as punishing as other Souls games, and I can totally recommend it. So yeah, anyway, thank you for listening and or watching, and take care.